Hi guys, Mr. Talbot here for you today. Going over kind of the required portion of the topic 2.4 notes. So we want to be making sure that we are getting this information over the Mongols. That's going to be part of your multiple choice assessment. And it really gives a big, broad idea of what's going on across Eurasia at this time. After you watch this video, remember it's important that you pick just one of the other videos that you see listed there, whether it's state building in the Americas, in Africa, or developments in the Muslim world. So as we look at the Mongols, kind of to set the scene, Mongols, they're still Mongols today. We still have the country of Mongolia, but the kind of the zenith of them being a big player in world history is actually very short by world history standards. We're talking about a century and a half or so. In that century and a half, the Mongols, initially led by Genghis Khan, are going to end up essentially helping to set some of the basis for the modern world that we know of today. A lot of destruction that goes along with it, which we're going to see. But we're going to see over time, we have these big empires in Eurasia, and some of them are going to start collapsing. And like, whereas we see kind of the major power in Europe before was the Western Roman Empire, and kind of after they faded away, the Roman Catholic Church became the big connecting force. In Eurasia, it's going to be, particularly, Asia, before you get to Europe, it's going to be the Mongol Empire. So they're going to be doing this connection. They're going to kind of protect trade routes. They're going to increase communication. They're going to be moving people all over their different empire. And that's going to be kind of what's going to lead to this big technological and cultural transfer that the Mongols are going to lead us along. So just to give you some sense of scale, the Mongol Empire is the largest land-based empire in history. It's about twice as big as the United States if you include Alaska. And they're able to build this in just 100 years. So very, very rapid. And the reason is because pretty much all Mongol people lived on horseback at the time. And so they're kind of going to be the most powerful military force of their time. Overall, not a formal education system that the Mongols had, but they're able to really cause a lot of mayhem and destruction. They are going to take over the Islamic world for the most part, except for North Africa. They're going to kind of bring an end to the golden age of Islam, but they're going to take some of the learning of that golden age and help spread it around the world. We think somewhere between 12 and 40 million people are going to die as a result of the Mongols. Their soldiers are going to be destroying, raping, and pillaging across. A huge chunk of the global population can trace their ancestry back to Genghis Khan because of all the mayhem he causes. And they're going to displace probably more people than anyone in world history. So a lot of destruction, and it's essentially going to be a reset button, a sledgehammer to take to the world at the time. Genghis Khan, if you look at the quote here, felt like, he did this great work. He, united the whole world in one empire. He doesn't really unite the whole world. You kind of see, India, all of Africa, a lot of Western Europe is not going to be there. Certainly not the Americas or Australia. So, again, it's a huge empire, but there's still kind of a lot that he is not going to be able to rule over. But what he does rule over, he makes a lot of links and a lot of connections. A unique thing about the Mongols, whereas when America established its empire, it spreads American culture. When the British had their empire, they were spreading British culture, British music, British sport, British language, all over the world. The Mongols don't do that. They have their own religion, but they don't care if anyone follows it or not. They're very tolerant of other religions, of other ideas, and so they're kind of just this big blender that everything can kind of get tossed to. A big thing that they're going to do is causes culture and technology to transfer between different places. If you were a skilled metal worker in, India or in, Mesopotamia, they might move you to work with a gunpowder manufacturer in China. You didn't have any say in it, but what that's going to allow you to do, you're going to be able to work with the bell worker and the gunpowder producer. You're going to be able to work together to make cannons. So that's kind of how they are going to be blending this culture together. Different scholars and doctors and people working in medicine and astronomy, all these different fields that were kind of developing stuff somewhat in isolation are now all being brought together and all connected thanks to the Mongols. So that's why we kind of would say that they're this big blender of culture. Key idea for the Mongols there. This kind of, Jeff is going to show you how fast they're going to spread from kind of Central Asia within 100 years, again, you're just going to see them spread over most of Asia, going to rule over Russia, and going to push all the way towards Western Europe, but Western Europe will not be conquered, nor will Egypt, because that's going to be held out kind of by the Mamluks, but a huge, huge chunk of society. But then shortly thereafter, the different kids and stuff in the Mongol end up kind of breaking it off, and the empire is going to really disappear pretty quickly. But when it disappears, the connections are not forgotten. So what the Mongols end up kind of being is a reset. So we have these connections now. We can kind of begin almost Eurasian history again. So things like gunpowder are going to be brought to Europe. Things like the compass is going to be brought to Europe and India. And then other technologies brought to the Muslim world, and they're going to develop new, like, kind of ship navigating technologies. So kind of how this, and the other thing is, the Mongols, because they were so powerful, much like the Roman Empire had brought peace to Europe, the Mongols are bringing peace to most of Asia. With that peace, you can have more and more trade, because no one is stupid enough to try and cause trouble in the Mongol Empire, because they know they'll be destroyed. So this fosters a huge increase in trade, and with trade comes ideas and all those different things. What we're going to kind of close out today is with this kind of analogy. Dar el-Islam, which is like the Muslim world, and China are going to walk so that Europe can run. And so with that, we can see a lot of these different things that, the Muslim world did, like preserving the old, classical European ideas, advances in astronomy, advances in math and medicine, all kind of going on in the Muslim world. China's doing all this stuff that's going to help to get the printing press going, gunpowder, the compass, paper, all those things come from China. All of this stuff is going to be kind of put together and brought to Europe thanks to what goes on with the Mongols. That's going to lead to new forms of weaponry, but the ideas of humanism, the ideas of the Renaissance that we've studied, all this stuff kind of can happen because of the Mongols. And that's why we'd say this is kind of the creation of the modern world.